Harris cut his own cheek with the knife.
Why are they doing cheeks? Like, yo. Do these guys not know they have fingers, arms, like legs, wrists? Like, pause. But still, you know, there's other things you could slash than your cheek. Come on now.
Later, in the void.
What's going on, everyone? It's your boy Savvy, and welcome back to the Savvy Show. And in today's episode, it looks like we got a pretty self-explanatory SCP. However, it might be misleading. This is SCP-4955, knife. Yes, just that, knife. So, I'm sure this is not going to be some regular old knife. I have no idea what kind of anomalous traits this knife will have. However, if I had to think about an anomalous trait this SCP might have, a cool one might be if someone touches the knife, becomes, you know, bloodthirsty and might, you know, turn into a serial killer or a murderer because the knife is changing them into something else. That'd be kind of cool, but who knows? However, like always, we're going to find out today. So with that all out the way, if you guys are excited for this reaction and you guys do enjoy it along the way, please remember to smash that like button for me. It takes less than a second and is 100% free. And also smash that sub button and join the family. We're so close to the year goal, which is 10K subs on the channel. Let's get it done, guys. If you do enjoy my content, it'll be much appreciated. Thank you. And also remember, smash that notification button so you do not miss an upload. Now, with that all out the way, let's get this show started. Alrighty, SCP-4955, knife. Let's go.
The SCP Foundation works very hard to keep all the knowledge and evidence of their discoveries from reaching the outside world. As far as the average person is concerned, the entities and anomalies documented by the SCP Foundation do not exist. Anyone that stumbles upon an anomaly without authorization will wind up having their memory wiped with amnestics or something far, far worse. But either way, the knowledge never enters into the general public's consciousness.
Well, that's not 100% true. There's some SCPs that the world do know about. In my latest reactions, you guys could go check it out. Don't want to spoil you guys. However, that's not always the case.
But what if there was an anomaly that even the members of the Foundation didn't know about? Not because they hadn't discovered it yet, but because somehow it wouldn't let itself be known. It sounds impossible, but one particular Foundation researcher faced this paradox while covering an anomaly that is currently listed in the archives without a number, referred only as knife.
Doesn't it have a number? Then why is it assigned a number for this video? What the heck?
Junior researcher Harris was assigned to SCP-4955 one day, and given the responsibility of examining it and cataloging any anomalous behavior displayed by the item. SCP-4955 was a simple knife of unknown make and model, about the size and sharpness of a common kitchen knife. He took the knife into the lab and ran the usual tests. He scanned the materials, tested for any kind of radiation, administered thermodynamic tests, and did everything else that is standard procedure for a new SCP. In spite of all of his efforts, he found nothing unusual about it at all. It was just a knife, with a metal blade and a wooden handle. It didn't give off radiation. It didn't have any unusual level of sharpness. It didn't glow in the dark. By all accounts, it was a completely ordinary, boring knife. So why then was it even at the Foundation in the first place? Why was his time, which could be better spent on other more pressing research, being wasted?
Must be a catch.
Junior researcher Harris decided to present his highly uneventful report to his supervisor. It was then finally that the strangeness began. At the start of the meeting, Harris's supervisor had no memory of anything being placed in P0055, where the knife was being stored. Harris confirmed that yes, there was something there. He continued his report, explaining that the knife had displayed no anomalous properties at all, and didn't seem like the sort of thing the Foundation should be wasting resources on. As soon as he delivered his report, his supervisor just stared at him, blankly, as if she was expecting something from him. Unsettled, Harris asked her if she was alright. She replied sharply, saying that she was perfectly fine, but was getting tired of waiting for him to give his report. Caught completely off guard, Harris gave her his report on the knife a second time, only to be met with the same blank stare.
Can they not perceive anything that's attached to the knife? Hence the report? What the hell? Like, is it possible where only the person that has touched the knife knows about the knife's existence or anything related to the knife? That's why it doesn't have a number? Yo.
He attempted to give the report 2 more times before giving up and leaving in exasperation.
Dang.
Somehow, as soon as he told his supervisor about the knife, she forgot everything he said on the subject.
Another info hazard SCP. Damn, we're on a roll with these ones.
Determined to explore this bizarre turn of events further, Harris set about recruiting a colleague to help him conduct an experiment with the knife. He managed to bribe another Foundation employee named Researcher Smalls with $5 and the appeal of an unsolved mystery.
$5?
And he agreed to step in and participate. As soon as Smalls entered the room where the research was being conducted, Harris held up the knife and showed it to him. He asked Smalls, "Do you see this?" To which Smalls replied bafflingly, "See what?" Harris approached Smalls, holding the knife right up to his face. Still, Smalls insisted that he saw nothing in the room aside from Harris and himself. The more Harris pressed him, the more Smalls insisted with a smile that he did not see the knife and had no idea what Harris was talking about.
He should low-key poke him with the knife. Nothing too crazy, mind you guys. Don't stab him, but he should poke him to see if he actually feels the knife. Seeing's one thing, that's one sense. What about if he could feel it? Or if he could try to touch it where the knife was supposed to be? Come on now. I hope they do that. I want to see.
In a frustrated outburst, Harris smacked Smalls across the face with the broadside of the knife. He stumbled for a moment as the blow made its impact, then steadied himself and looked at Harris with the same expression as before. The same expression he had seen on his supervisor earlier that same day.
Wait, so did he feel the end of the knife? What?
Attempting to regain his composure,
I would hope so.
Harris asked Smalls, "Did you feel that?" Smalls grinned at him and replied, "All I feel is bored." Determined to push the limits of his colleague's apparent forgetfulness, Harris cornered Smalls and raised the knife to his face once more. This time slowly, maintaining eye contact with him all the while. Harris used the blade to make a deliberate, shallow cut across Smalls' cheek. The man winced as the knife made its mark. But as soon as the blade was tucked into Harris's pocket and out of sight, he did not reference it once. He smirked at Harris with blood dripping down his cheek from a wound he would not acknowledge. This experiment...
Okay, this is weird. So he doesn't feel the blunt end of the knife. However, the knife is still able to cut him. And why would he choose his face though? That's hella messed up. Why don't you choose his arm or something? Oh my god.
With Smalls brought Harris's understanding of the knife into sharp perspective. The knife itself was not the anomaly, but rather the knife's effect on anyone who observed it. Everyone, with the inexplicable exception of Harris, who observed or learned about the knife, was rendered somehow unable to verbally acknowledge or possibly even comprehend its existence.
Why can't he though?
Harris and Smalls met for dinner later that evening, and Harris was fascinated to see that his colleague's cheek was still smeared with blood. It had been left to dry there all day, undisturbed on Smalls' face.
He doesn't see it. He can't perceive the cut. Yo! Okay, this is kind of crazy. What happens if he cuts off a limb? He's just gonna end up just walking like say his legs get cut off or his foot gets cut off. He's gonna act like he has that foot still until he collapses. Yo, what the heck?
Several other researchers noticed the wound and asked Smalls about it, who insisted it was nothing. The curious parties accepted his answer, but only after looking at Harris for a long time. Though they would not say it out loud, on some level they knew what had happened with the knife. When Smalls wasn't looking, Harris dosed his drink with a strong memory recovery agent developed by the Foundation's anti-memetics team and attempted to introduce Smalls to the knife again. Unfortunately, it had no effect, and Smalls was still unable to acknowledge the existence of the knife. The next day, determined to take his experimentation to the next level, Harris cut his own cheek with the knife.
Why are they doing cheeks? Like, yo. Do these guys not know they have fingers, arms, like legs, wrists? Like, pause. But still, there's other things you could slash than your cheek. Come on now. They were weird for this one.
Walked around the facility as usual, letting his wound bleed freely onto his face and formerly pristine white lab coat. Colleagues stopped him to ask what had happened, and he told them plainly, "I cut myself with SCP-4955. Upon hearing those words, each person asking about Harris's injury immediately turned and walked away, covering their mouth. Believing the knife to be some kind of anti-meme, or an anomaly that resists being recorded or remembered, Harris administered further tests. He ran the knife through a QNTM anti-meme machine, but found nothing. The knife behaved like previous anti-memes, but was unaffected by machinery designed to observe them, and was immune to the effects of memory recovery agents designed to counter them.
Jeez, this is a nasty gash.
Was it? Harris was beginning to feel like he was at the center of a grand practical joke, and he couldn't figure out the punchline. All he knew was that his grip on reality was beginning to slip, and the knife was to blame. Harris's supervisor stopped by his office to check in with him about SCP-4955, demanding a report on the anomaly. At the end of his rope, he responded, "What 4955?" Just as the supervisor began to reprimand him for his poor attitude, Harris took the paperwork for $49.55 and shredded it into ribbons with a knife as his supervisor watched.
Damn.
As soon as he was finished, he looked up to see his supervisor staring at him, wide-eyed. Slowly, she lifted her hand to her mouth and began to laugh. She laughed loudly, uproariously, like it was the best joke she had ever heard. Then she asked him to take a look at SCP-3309 instead. Harris clenched his jaw, glared at her, and lifted the knife to his hand. He sliced open the tip of his finger and flicked the blood onto her face.
What the hell?
She didn't even flinch. Instead, she turned away laughing, face still streaked with Harris's blood, and went about the rest of her day. This is the moment when Harris began to crack. All he wanted was for someone, anyone, to acknowledge the knife that was driving him out of his mind. It was as if the entire facility, including his own machinery, was gaslighting him. He decided to take more extreme measures to get everybody's attention. At this point, whatever it took, he would do it. Harris marched into the Foundation's cafeteria at lunchtime, carrying his usual bag.
What is he doing?
He walked into the center of the room, taking in the sight of his colleagues. His supervisor still had his blood on her face. Smalls still had a pool of dried blood on his cheek from his day-old wound. Harris took a deep breath and unzipped his bag, pulling out a test rat from one of the laboratories.
The hell?
As the crowded cafeteria looked on, Harris pulled the knife from his pocket and dispatched the rat with one quick slash. He held the dead rat up in the air, commanding the attention of the room, then let it drop with a sickening thud. No one said a word. They only watched and quietly laughed amongst themselves.
Dang.
5 days later, the rat was still there. It had been stepped on and flattened by days of foot traffic. Flies were beginning to buzz around the corpse, and the smell had seeped into the ceiling.
They couldn't
and
perceive the rat
walls.
either?
Still, no one mentioned or referenced it. No one moved it, and no one talked about the knife. The following day, unable to stand the smell or the sight of it anymore, Harris broke down and cleaned up the rat.
Harris.
As he did, he could hear people laughing behind him. Every time Harris entered a room, people were laughing about something, and no one would tell him what. Still, when he brought up the knife, even when he screamed and cried and pleaded, everyone ignored the subject. It would not and could not be spoken about. Several days later, Smalls complained that someone had cut the plants he was growing in his room. Even though Harris had not cut his plants, he decided to take credit. "I did it, with my knife," he said. As soon as the knife was mentioned, Smalls sat down and went completely silent, abandoning the subject entirely. This gave Harris another crucial piece of information on the nature of the knife's effects. It did not matter whether the knife was actually present or involved in something. All that mattered was the perception that it was. Even the mention of the knife was enough to invoke its effect. The days bled into each other. Day after day of Harris begging his colleagues to see what he saw, demanding to know what the hell they were laughing about, and feeling more and more utterly alone. Harris's mind had truly begun to come apart at the seams. In the second-to-last entry in his research log, he simply wrote, "It's almost showtime. Time to give the people what they want."
You gonna kill him?
The day after
Kill
he
yourself,
wrote that
actually?
cryptic entry, Harris walked up to Smalls in the cafeteria and tapped him on the shoulder. When Smalls turned to greet his friend, Harris stabbed him in the chest. Smalls fell to the ground, curling up in the fetal position, and Harris kicked the knife deeper in as Smalls cowered there. He did not stop until Smalls was dead. Harris was removed from the facility, leaving the knife in Smalls' body. Harris was promptly terminated, eliminating the last person who appeared was able to discuss the knife. As for the knife now, its current location is unknown, making this mundane little object one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the SCP
That's
Foundation.
actually crazy.
What was the knife exactly? What gave it such a strange hold on people? In the end, it might not even matter. After all, what is more frightening? An object that prevents people from being able to remember it, or being the only person in the whole world who does? Now go check out...
That is nuts. I want to know why he was a person that was able to, like, you know, witness the knife and see the knife and perceive it as what it is. And everyone else cannot. Because I thought maybe because he was the first one that, you know, was messing with the knife, then the anomalous traits latched onto him, gave him the anti-meme effects where, like, only he could perceive it and everyone else can't. And I figured, like, if he dies, maybe the next person that is touching the knife or is, you know, dealing with the knife will end up being like this doctor. But if that's true, it kind of does make sense because the knife is stabbed into someone that's already dead. So there's no way he could operate or move the knife because he should be the only one that knows about its existence. However, if he's dead, how would he? So That would make sense. No one will know where it's at. Oh my god. Dang, this was pretty cool. I didn't expect it to be like this. But if you guys did enjoy this reaction, please remember to smash that like button for me. Also smash the sub button and hit that bell so you can stay plugged for each and every upload. And unfortunately, that concludes today's episode. However, I'll catch you guys on the next one.